This you know, my beloved brethren, but everyone must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger, for the anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God. The book of Psalm chapter 22 verse 24. The book of Psalm chapter 22 through verse 24. For he has not despised nor abhorred the affliction of the afflicted, nor has he hidden his face from him. But when he cried to him for help, he heard. The book of Psalm chapter 140 verse 12. I know that the Lord will maintain the cause of the afflicted and justice for the poor. The book of Psalm chapter 103 verse 6. The Lord performs righteous deeds and judgments for all who are oppressed. The book of Isaiah chapter 1 verse 17. Learn to do good, seek justice, reprove the ruthless, defend the orphan, plead for the widow. The book of Ephesians chapter 4 verse 29. Let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth, but only such a word as good for edification, according to the need of the moment, so that it will give grace to those who hear. The book of James chapter 1 verse 26. If anyone thinks himself to be religious and yet does not bridle his tongue but deceives his own heart, this man's religion is worthless. The book of James chapter 3 verse 10. From the same mouth come both blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought to not be this way. The book of Ephesians chapter 4 verse 31. Let all bitterness and wrath, anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, along with all malice. Gotta be mindful of how we not abuse each other, man, not be manipulative towards each other. No need for bitterness or malice or anger, you know. The book of Ephesians chapter 6 verse 4. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in discipline and instruction of the Lord. The book of Psalm chapter 27 verse 10. For my father and my mother have forsaken me, but the Lord will take me up. The book of 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 8. But if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. The book of 1 John chapter 2 verse 9. Verse 4. The one who says, I have come to know him, and does not keep his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. The book of John chapter 8 verse 7. But when they persisted in asking him, he straightened up and said to them, He who is without sin among you, let him be the first to throw a stone at her. The book of Galatians chapter 6 verse 7. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked, for whatever a man sows, this he will also reap. The book of Job chapter 4 verse 8. According to what I have seen, those who have plowed iniquity, and those who sow trouble harvested. The book of Proverbs chapter 22 verse 24. Do not associate with a man given to anger, or go with a hot-tempered man. The book of Proverbs chapter 29 verse 22. An angry man stirs up strife, and a hot-tempered man abounds in transgression. The book of Colossians chapter 3 verse 21. Fathers, do not exasperate your children, so that they will not lose heart. The book of Exodus chapter 20 verse 12. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be prolonged in the land which the Lord your God gives you. The book of Deuteronomy chapter 5 verse 15. You shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God brought you out of there by a mighty hand and by an outstretched arm. Therefore the Lord your God command you to observe the Sabbath day. The book of Matthew chapter 19 verse 19. Honor your father and mother, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. The book of Luke chapter 18 verse 20. You know the commandments: do not commit adultery, do not murder, do not steal, do not bear false witness, honor your father, honor your mother. You know, people deal with abusive parents. That can be a very challenging thing with those commandments, but I pray to God that you got through every manipulative or abusive situation that you've been through in your life, and that you heal from it and be restored and recovered from it. You know, it's very important to heal from abuse and manipulation. You know, the book of 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 8. To sum up, all of you be harmonious, sympathetic, brotherly, kind-hearted, and humble in spirit. The book of Proverbs chapter 22 verse 7. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower becomes the lender's slave. The book of Colossians chapter 3 verse 19. Husbands, love your wives, and do not be embittered against them. Book of 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 15. Yet if the unbeliever one leaves, let him leave. The brother or the sister is not under bondage in such cases, but God has called us to peace. The book of Ephesians chapter 5 verse 25. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself up for her. The book of 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 7. Your husbands in the same way live with your wives, in an understanding way as with someone weaker, since she is a woman, and show her honor as a fellow heir of the grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered. The book of Proverbs chapter 21 verse 9. It is better to live in a corner of a roof than in a house shared with contentious women. Y'all be with these crazy women, man. I'm telling you. The book of Proverbs chapter 22 verse 24 through 25. Do not associate with a man given to anger, or go with a hot-tempered man, or you will learn his ways and find a snare for yourself. The book of 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 8. But if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. The book of Luke chapter 4 verse 18 through 19. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set free those who are oppressed, to proclaim the favorable year of the Lord. The book of 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 2. An overseer then must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, temperate, prudent, respectable, hospitable, able to teach. The book of Matthew chapter 18 verse 15 through 17. If your brother sins, go and show him his fault in private. If he listens to you, you have won your brother. But if he does not listen to you, take one or two more with you, so that by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every fact may be confirmed. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. Truly I say to you, whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. The book of Proverbs chapter 15 verse 1. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Be mindful of what you say to someone. The book of Titus chapter 3 verse 2. To malign 101, to be peaceable, gentle, showing every consideration for all men. The book of Matthew chapter 5 verse 29. If your right eye makes you stumble, tear it out and throw it out from you, for it is better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than have your whole body to be thrown into hell. The book of 1 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 11. But actually I wrote to you not to associate with any of those so-called brothers if he is an immoral person, or covetous, or an idolater, or a reviler, or a drunkard, or a swindler, not even to eat with such a one. The book of Hebrews chapter 13 verse 4. The book of Hebrews chapter 13 verse 4. Marriage is to be held in honor among all, and the marriage bed is to be undefiled. For fornicators and adulterers, God will judge. So there you have it, people. That's the topic of the day: manipulation and abuse. We discussed about overall abuse from a spouse, abuse of authority, abuse of Christian freedom, abuse of spiritual things, abuse to God's people, abuse of marriages, abuse of parents, and abuse of relationships. I pray that you all have healed from manipulation and abuse. I wasn't really feeling the best doing this, I feel a little under the weather, but I'm feeling better now, just wanted to really get the word out and get through with this, man. Just had to put a lot of scripture into it. I pray that if you've dealt with any manipulation or abuse, that you heal from it, you get baptized, you get cleansed, you start your life over, you forgive, and you live a better life from now on and stop hurting people, So, God bless y'all. I'm Jarvis Kingston. I got much love for y'all. Peace.